This is Business Incorporated, live to you from Channels Television Global Headquarters in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Bosin Mafaye. We thank you very much for coming up with us on the program. What's on the lineup for the next 30 minutes? The food giant Nestle of Switzerland reports its slowest sales increase in 6 years. Net profit off track by as much as 39%. And Exotic Partners in London says the recovery of the Nigerian naira may be a costly one. Plus, an update from the commodities market. Opeyemi Oguntade joining us to give the latest from the world of oil, with Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Nigeria's junior oil ministers shot to diplomacy. Now let's get started from Switzerland, where Nestle has reported its slowest sales increase in 6 years, as decelerating emerging markets and the strength of highly valued Swiss francs sapped the Swiss food giant's performance. The company based in Verve, maker of Kit Kat chocolate bars and Nescafe instant coffee, reported net profit of 9.1 billion Swiss francs for the 12 months ended December 31st, 2015. That was down from 14.46 billion francs a year earlier, when Nestle gained from the sale of part of its stake in L'Oreal. The figure missed analyst forecast of 10.06 billion Swiss francs. Sales at Nestle dipped to 88.8 billion francs from 91.6 billion francs in 2014. That's below the 89.37 billion francs estimated by analysts. In the UK, unemployment down 60,000 between October and December 2015 to 1.69 million. According to the Office for National Statistics, the rate of unemployment was unchanged from a month ago at 5.1%, maintaining a decade-low rate. More than 31.4 million people are in work, the highest figure since records began in 1971. However, the Office of Statistics says growth in people's earnings was still slow. According to the office, the employment rate continues to hit new highs, and there are more job vacancies than ever previously recorded. Earnings growth remains subdued and markedly below the recent peak of mid-2015. Pay package increased by 2% during the period, very similar to the growth rate between September to November 2014 and September to November 2015, which was about 1.9%. And the British Prime Minister David Cameron is attending a vital summit with European partners in Brussels. He hopes to renegotiate reforms to Britain's membership ahead of a promised in-out referendum on EU membership later this year. Now we'll take a look at the markets and some of these stories, earnings also from some of the European listed companies, the giants Nestle, Air France, KLM today. Let's bring in DWTV financial correspondent Javier Arguedes for Channels Television, live to us from the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Javier, a good afternoon to you. Let's get started with the earnings. Bittersweet numbers coming through from Nestle SA and Air France, KLM, and some news from Airbus and Boeing as well. This Airbus, what's it called, aircraft makers. Now, do you think these results are a source of confidence for European equity investors right now?
Hi, Bosun. Well, at this point, I would say that investors are still looking at all these results with a lot of care, because you don't really know how this is going to play out in the end. So far, we are in the middle of the earnings season, and most of the earnings expectations have been missed. That is perhaps one of the most important problems that we're seeing. And this is in a context where most experts and analysts, at least until the end of last year, were expecting the markets to recover very quickly and the companies to post quite good results. There is one exception, though, you already mentioned it, and it is the industries that are blessed by the low oil prices, and the most important ones perhaps are the airlines. That's why we are seeing such good results from Air France and KLM after a restructuring of the company. After a lot of struggle, they are now profitable again, and the same goes for almost every major carrier, at least here in Europe so far, that has profited not only from the low oil prices but also from a weaker euro. So we still have to wait and see, but so far, even though we are seeing some good numbers there, the results are not really that convincing.
Well, Javier, very early today, the organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, known as the OECD, cuts global growth forecasts and warns of growing risks around the world. Is this part of the conversations at the Frankfurt markets today?
Well, it definitely is, because it goes hand in hand with what I was saying before, that the prospects for this year, the forecasts that most experts had predicted, were actually pretty good. They were hoping for a strong recovery in the stock markets and for a stronger economic growth in almost every region, but especially here in Europe and in the United States. And what we are seeing now is that the economic growth is slowing down, mainly due to the Chinese slowdown, which, as we know, has shocked and impacted in many other markets. The latest figures that we received from China suggested a decline in imports of about 19%, and that means that 19% less sales are being made from other countries to China. Of course, this is going to have a big impact, but as the year progresses and as we get the latest fresh numbers of the economic performance in the Eurozone, for example, and in the United States, it is very clear that the growth target or the growth prediction is definitely going to be missed this year, and that's why we're seeing corrections now, but almost any entity that made these predictions before.
Okay, let's wrap it on the stock, the Frankfurt DAX charts just across your shoulder. They're headed north since a little bit tepid early today. Now, what's the story about the market this Thursday, Javier? Was it the looming Brexit with David Cameron still pushing this agenda? Does it have to do with Mario Draghi's last statement about where the ECB goes from here? Was it Japan's trade surplus, or was it China, or was it the United States?
Well, it is a little bit of everything as usual, but I would say the Brexit is not necessarily seen as a big risk yet. I would say that most investors are hoping for an agreement, for some type of agreement between the EU and the UK for the country to stay in the European Union, and at least for some of the Euro-skeptical people in Britain to rethink that decision. So until now, that is not that much of a concern for investors here. I would say that what we're seeing today, these gains, this recovery, is mainly due to two things. One is the fact that the oil prices are a little bit more stable upon hopes that there will be some type of agreement to limit or reduce worldwide oil production. That is one of the criteria. And the other one, which is also very important, is hopes for a lot of intervention by the different central banks in all the countries that you mentioned. So it is still based on hopes. Let's see if those hopes turn into reality, Bosa.
Thank you for your time today, Javier. DWTV financial correspondent for Channels Television at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. The British farmers are weighing on the plans by the Prime Minister David Cameron to take Britain out of the European Union. This is a crunching time, and we'll find out more about that after the break.